Good morning and namaste to all of you. Let's start the prayers before we go into our class. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhur Bhavaswaha Tatsavitra Varenyam, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat, Asto Ma Sadgamya, Tamso Ma Jyotirgamya, Mrityurma Amritam Gamya. Om Senavavatu Senavunatu Saviryam Karvavai, Tejasvi Navadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavai. Om Shanti 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 Om. Let's open our books, Uddhava Gita, chapter 12 and verse number 31. That's where we are starting today's class. No dvijet janad dhiro janam cha udvijena natu ativadamas titikshet navamanet kanchana deham udishye pashuvad varam kuryan nakena chitam. A transcendentalist should not become frightened or disturbed by others, nor should he ever act in a way that disturbs others or makes them fearful. So we should not be the cause of fear for anybody else. And we don't need to be afraid of anybody else either, as we are progressing on this path. He should tolerate the insults others hurl at him, and he should not criticize others. He should never create enmity simply for some material advantage, for that would make him no better than an animal. Not just better than others, better than anyone. The phrase ativad means very harsh words. So we should not use harsh words. Our speech should be sweet. It should be truthful. It should be beneficial. There's a lot of power in our speech. A saintly person does not cause anxiety to any living entity by means of his body, mind, or speech. In this regard, one should carefully contemplate this verse, which was spoken by Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. So that means अपने आप को मान नहीं देना. Okay? Stay humble. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige and ready to offer all respect to others. So give respect to others, but do not expect respect. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of Lord constantly. Only then you can do it. Otherwise, you are singing your own glories. If you are expecting others should respect you. Verse number 32. Ek ev parohi atma bhuteshu atmannehe avasthitah yathendra udpatreshu bhutanyehe ek atma kanicha. The one Supreme Lord is situated within the bodies of all living entities, and indeed within their very self. Just as the moon is reflected on the surface of innumerable bodies of water, the super soul, although one, is present everywhere. There's no place where God is not. Every material body is thus composed of the energy of the one Supreme Lord. Okay, so there's only one. One. The understanding that frees one from enviousness is being described in this verse. The super soul is present within all living entities. Just as the moon, although one, is reflected in innumerable parts of water, the super soul, although one, is present within all living entities as the supreme director. Therefore, one should not envy anyone. knowing that the Supreme Lord is present within all material bodies, which are also manifestations of his energy. An object and its reflection are certainly similar in many respects, but one should never think that they are actually equal and thus disregard the object. The material bodies of the conditioned souls may certainly be subject to criticism, but by understanding how the Supreme Lord is present within each of them, one should free himself by thoughts of duality, which are prominent in the society of animals. The devotees of the Lord are never hostile or violent toward anyone, knowing that everyone is the eternal servant of God. So if you remember this ultimate truth, that God is in everybody, how can we hurt somebody? Because we don't want to hurt God. Okay? So we got to have this kind of a vision that God is in everybody and God is everywhere. Automatically, it translates into a softer personality. And there is just, without one thinking about, we will be respecting everybody. Because if the God is there, why not respect? Verse number 33. Alabdhava na vishidet kale, kale nashanam kvachit, labdhava na hrishyed dhritiman ubhyam dev tantritama. If sometimes one does not get enough food, see, alabdhava. Okay? Something is not there enough. One should not be discouraged. Just as when one receives delicious food, he should not become overjoyed. Being fixed in firm determination to remain a faithful devotee, one should understand both situations to be under the control of the Supreme Lord. Okay? Dukh mein, sukh mein. All the time, remembering God. The phrase Devaha Tantritam means under the control of providence. Providence means the God. Happiness and distress come automatically in due course of time, and thus one should remain undisturbed in either condition. We foolishly consider ourselves to be the doers of our activities. But due to this false ego of thinking ourselves to be the controllers, we are forced to experience happiness and distress according to the quality of our lives. The term which was used in Bhagavad Gita by Lord Krishna was samatvam, equanimity. Whether it's a good time or not so good time, equanimity. Verse number 34. Ahartham samihet yuktam tat pran dharanam tatvam vimrishyate ten tad vigyaye vimuchyate. If required, one should endeavor to get sufficient food because one should carefully maintain his health. By keeping the body fit, one can cultivate spiritual truth and thereby attain liberation. Because in this human body, this is our duty to take care of the body too. So we should get sufficient food, sufficient exercise. Got to keep it clean also. That's our duty. If food does not come automatically or by begging, one should make an endeavor because food is necessary to sustain one's life. Because in this chapter, he's talking about the Varnashrams and where the sannyasi is. Because sannyasi can beg for food, but if by begging he doesn't get the food, he said he should make an endeavor because food is necessary to sustain one's life. If one's body is in a healthy condition, one can cultivate God consciousness without disturbance and as a result to make a steady advancement. Okay? Even though Earning the food or hoarding the food is not our goal, but we do need food to sustain this body. This is the point he's making over here. One should not eat too much, nor eat too little. One should eat only as much as is required to keep the body fit for rendering devotional service to the Lord. Normally, those who are endeavoring in spiritual life cannot maintain steady concentration if their mind and body are weakened by under eating. Okay. And what was the term used by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita? Yukta. Yukta. Moderation. Not too much, not too little. In all the activities, whether it's a food or any other activity also. Could be sleep, it could be recreation, anything. Moderation is the term. Yata. Yukta. On the other hand, extravagant eating is a great impediment for spiritual advancement and therefore should be given up. Constantly, if we are just thinking about what we're going to eat, where we're going to eat, we are not moving. That becomes a hurdle actually. This impediment means hurdle on our path of improvement. Okay? So we got to live to live, eat to live, not just to live to eat. It's a big difference. Verse number 35. Yadrichyaho upanam udyach shreshtham utaparam tatha vasas tatha shayyam praptam bhajen muni. The transcendentalist should accept whatever food, clothing, and bedding comes to its own accord, whether they be very good or very poor. It is best if one can obtain food without any endeavor. A sage should not discriminate between delicious and tasteless food. He should be happy with whatever he is destined to obtain. Okay, be thankful for what you get. 36. Shaucham achmanam sananam na tuchod neha charet anyansha cha niyaman gyani yathaham lileshwaraha. I am the Supreme Lord. So Lord Krishna is saying that. And yet I execute regulative duties by my own free will. So he says, I am the Lord. I still follow these. Similarly, one who is advancing in self-realization should wash his hands, bathe, perform other regulative duties just to lead others on the right path. Because as the leaders do, so the followers do. Okay? A devotee of the Lord is not a servant of rules and regulations. He is a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Still, he executes the regulative duties in relation to the material body by his own free will and not as a servant of the rules of regulations. Okay? So we should not become a servant or a lover of the rules. We should do those because they will help us to enhance us on this path of spirituality. One who leads his life in a way that is favorable for the service of the Supreme Lord is always a liberated soul. Although situated within the material world, devotees of the Lord on the Paramhans platform are not compelled to perform bodily activities, such as brushing the teeth or bathing, like ordinary people. Such a Paramhans may be impure or unclean according to material estimation because he is a servant of Lord Krishna and not of rules and regulations. And last week we saw some of these things which is mentioning over here. The rules for a Paramhans. Verse number 37. Na hi tasye vikalpakyaha yacha mad vikshyaha adehantat kochit khyatistataha sampajyate naya. A self-realized soul does not see anything as separate from me because he has passed out of the dense darkness of illusion. See, darkness of illusion does not let us see the reality. but a self-realized soul has conquered that. However, because of his previous habits that absorbed his body and mind in sense gratification, he may sometimes be seen to act like an ordinary conditioned soul. Still, upon quitting his body at the time of the death, such a devotee will be awarded my divine opulence. On the strength of realized knowledge of the Lord, one gives up the illusion that anything, anywhere, at any time can be separate from him. Still, Lord Krishna has said that a devotee must keep his material body and mind fit for executing devotional service. So all these apparatus we have gotten, the purpose of that is that we can stay in love with God. That's what devotion means. Therefore, even a self-realized soul may sometimes appear to accept or reject certain conditions within this world. Such a brief apparent duality of concentration upon material conditions does not change the liberated status of a self-realized soul. However, because he never forgets to see everything in relation to the Supreme Lord. So in other words, outside sometimes it seems like a saint or a sage is acting just like us, wearing the similar clothes, eating the same food, living in opulence, but internally, this saint is connected with God. Okay? Because inside we cannot see, and we judge people from outside. A devotee does not see anything as being separate from Lord Krishna, and he does not consider his position within the material world to be permanent. His only desire is to render service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just as materialistic men are always found making arrangements for their personal enjoyment, devotees are busy throughout the day and night, planning how to best serve the Lord. So it's like a day and night, that's all they're thinking about. Just like a worldly person, day and night thinking about how to make more money, how to become more famous, or how to become more popular. But a devotee's day and night endeavor is, how can I serve my Lord? Thus, they have no inclination to waste their time in the frivolous entertainments sought by the materialists. Materialistic men cannot understand this mentality of the devotee, and so they sometimes dare to criticize him, thinking him to be just like an ordinary man. At the time of death, however, the results of the devotees and the results obtained by the materialists are very different. Dukho Darkeshu Kameshu Jat Nirved Atamvan Aj Gyatsist Mad Dharmoho Munim Gurum Upavrajet. One who has become disgusted with material enjoyment, knowing that it ultimately produces only misery, and who desires spiritual perfection, but has not understood the process for attaining it, should approach a spiritual master who is fixed in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord. So again, he's telling us that, sure, if you can get there by yourself, go do it. But if you can't, find a person who can teach you. In all the worldly endeavors also, we found teachers. We spent time with them. We learned. So on this also, the same thing. The Supreme Lord said, one who has attained wisdom and has thus become disgusted with the miserable conditions of material enjoyment should inquire about me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For that purpose, he should approach a bona fide spiritual master and thus receive transcendental knowledge in relation to me. One who is actually intelligent should be inquisitive to understand the cause of his suffering in this temporary world of birth and death. Thus, he should take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master who is fully devoted to the service of the Lord and is therefore detached from desires for insignificant material enjoyment. Materialists who are not engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord are always baffled in their attempts to enjoy the material world, and as a result, they are certainly in a miserable condition of life. A sober person who has realized the futility of material existence can become freed from material bondage by taking shelter of an experienced devotee of the Lord, thus giving up all unwanted association. Verse number 39. Tavat parichared bhaktah shraddhavan anasuyaka yavat brahm vijanayan mam ev guru adrata. Unlike or until a devotee has practical realization of the absolute truth. So until means, because it's not going to happen just in the first attempt. Something so deep, so important, it will definitely take time. So that's why he says, until a devotee has practical realization of the absolute truth, he should continue to respectfully render service to the spiritual master, who is non-different from me. So that kind of a guru, who is a yogi guru. Yogi means who is united with God, one with God. So that kind of a master. The Supreme Lord said, the spiritual master is non-different from me, being an external manifestation of my mercy. See, God is everywhere, but we don't see God. We cannot talk to God. So that's why he's saying that a master, a guru like that, being an external manifestation of my mercy. Okay, so it's a God's kripa on us when we find a guru like that, because we can talk to the guru, we can share our ups and downs with the guru, we learn from the guru. So he says he is not different from me, but he is in the physical body. A devotee who has pleased his spiritual master and is thus endowed with realization of the truth can directly engage in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is indicated in this verse that as long as one has not become sufficiently convinced of the truth of the teachings of his spiritual master, he should remain very close to his guru to render personal service. So this personal service, sometimes we think we are doing a favor to the guru. No. We are washing ourselves when we are serving the guru, when we are following the teachings of the guru. That is the real serving guru, really means doing what guru tells us to do. And we have to keep on doing it. See, most of the secular area, there is a duration of teachings, 4 years of degree, or 6 years, or 8 years, then internship, all those different requirements are there. And over here, you got to see that, hey, is my mind getting cleaner? Is it more restful? Can I concentrate? Am I becoming more and more peaceful, calm, more detached from this material world? That's how we judge ourselves. It's not the number of years. It's how detached we can be, how selfless we can be. Anytime, if we get a chance to help somebody or help ourselves, which one do we choose? So all these little things we learn from a guru. That am I progressing or not? Okay, so it's not a number of years. It's this cultivation of these qualities? Are they coming natural in us? Whether it's a sham or dam or tatiksha or shraddha or samadhan or even shraddha. Those are the qualities we need to look at. Are all those 6 enemies of ours, have they been conquered or not? Okay, so let's look at verse number 40 and 41, they are together. Yasatva asanyataha shatvargaha prachandedrihe sarathi ज्ञान वैराग्य रहितस त्रिदंडम उपजीवति सुरान आत्मनम आत्मास्तम निहनुते माम च धर्मः अविपक्व कषायो अस्माद अमुष्माच च विहेयते. One who is devoid of knowledge and renunciation, who has not conquered his 6 enemies: lust, anger, greed, envy, false pride, and illusion. Kam, krodh, lobh. We are familiar with these terms. Who is forcefully driven by the charioteer of his mind, who makes a show of being in the renounced order of life, sannyas, simply for earning his livelihood, who denies himself, and the super soul within is doomed both in this life and the next. If we are just calling ourselves a sannyasis or a bhagat for the name's sake, but these qualities are not being cultivated, he says, doomed both in this life and the next. The Lord herein condemns imitation sannyasis who adopt the garb of a saintly person simply to gain material advantage. Such a person certainly cheats himself while disregarding the demigods and the supersoul within. Such a bogus sannyasi lives a most condemned existence both in this world and the next. One who is not engaged in the devotional service of the Lord must be also devoid of genuine knowledge and renunciation. Okay, so that means he really don't know what this is all about. Unless the senses are fully engaged in the service of the Lord, they will restlessly drag one into inferior pursuits. The senses are horses, very powerful horses. If we don't employ them into the service of God, they will definitely take us somewhere else. And we are all familiar with these strong senses of ours. Thus, becoming a servant of his senses, the non-devotee fails to properly regulate his bodily activities, mind and speech. One who adopts the dress of a sannyasi simply for filling his belly is never accepted by intelligent followers of Vedic principles. However, such a so-called sannyasi who ruins all Vedic religious principles sometimes becomes famous among foolish persons, but they are simply cheating themselves and their followers. Those charlatan sannyasis are never actually engaged in the loving devotional service of Lord Krishna. So they are like a pseudo sannyasis. They have just picked up this as a profession, easy profession, begging. Let somebody else take care of my needs. And so the result they achieve is far different from the attained by the genuine devotees. So genuine devotee who has picked up this, that, hey, I want to serve God through this body, through this mind, in this lifetime, those are genuine. They are vairagi also, and they do the abhyas also. They control the senses also. But if somebody has just taken it as a easy path, that is, let somebody else take care of my needs, he says they are doomed in this life and in the next life also. Because next life is no different than the continuation of this life. Okay? So whatever we do now, that's what we will reap in the future also. Number 42. Bhikshor dharmaha shamo ahimsa tapa ikshaha vinoksaha grihino bhuta rakshechyehe dvijse acharyehe sevanam. The main religious duties of a sannyasi are equanimity and non-violence. Whereas for a vanaprastha, austerity and the knowledge by which one can discriminate between matter and spirit are prominent. The main duties of a grihastha are to give protection to all living entities and perform sacrifices. And the duty of a brahmachari is to serve the spiritual master. So the main duties in this verse is telling us according to each ashram. The duty of a sannyasi is to carefully control his mind and to remain free from envy of others. The duty of a vanaprastha is to perform austerities and clearly understand the difference between the body and the soul. The duty of a grihastha is to give shelter to all living entities and perform sacrifices. Sacrifices means the yajnas. Those Panch Mahayajna, grihasthas are supposed to do. The whole society's welfare is rested on the grihasthas actually. The duty of a brahmachari is to serve the spiritual master. So brahmachari is the first stage, then grihastha, then vanaprastha, then the sannyasi. So the main duties are mentioned in this verse number 42. A brahmachari's duties is to serve the spiritual master. A grihastha's duty is to maintain all living entities and engage in the service of the Supreme Lord, while carefully observing religious principles. A vanaprastha's duty is to perform austerity and master the power of discrimination between matter and spirit. The duty of a sannyasi is to constantly engage in the service of the Supreme Lord without causing any anxiety to any living creature by means of his body, mind, or speech. Verse number 43. Brahmacharyam tapashocham santosham bhut sohridam garistapyehe ritau gantuhu sarvesha mad upasanam. A householder should only engage in sexual intercourse with his wife at the times that are prescribed for begetting children. At other times, the householder should practice celibacy, austerity, purity of his body and mind, remaining satisfied in his position and displaying friendship towards all living entities. Worship of me is to be practiced by all human beings, regardless of his social or occupational status. Generally, a householder should practice celibacy, although he may indulge in sex with his wife after her menstrual period only for the purpose of procreation. The members of all the varans and ashrams are duty-bound to worship the Supreme Lord. Without this understanding, the observance of religious principles is ultimately useless. This is confirmed in these two verses from the Shrimad Bhagavatam. From the mouth of Brahma, the Brahmanical order has come into existence. Similarly, from his arms, the Kshatriyas have come, from his waist, the Vaishyas have come, and from his legs, the Shudras have come. These four orders and the spiritual counterparts, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas, combine to make human society complete. If one simply maintains an official position in the four varans and ashrams, but does not worship the Supreme Lord Vishnu, he falls down from his puffed up position into a hellish condition. It is a duty of the members of all the four ashrams to serve the Supreme Lord. A householder should practice celibacy, except that he may enjoy sex with his wife at an appropriate time, only for the sake of begetting children. A householder should act for the benefit all living entities, and he should remain pure and satisfied with his position in life. Let's do one more verse, verse number 44. Iti mam yaswadharmen bhajen nityam ananya bhak sarvabhuteshu madbhavo madbhaktim vindate dridam. One who gives up all other kinds of worship and engages in my service by the performance of his occupational duty, remembering that I am present within all living entities, achieves unflinching devotional service unto me. So, in whatever social or occupational division of human society one may be, one must be a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and worship Him alone. So, through our duties, through our karma, we can worship God no matter which karma we are doing, whatever our duty is. In the Vedas, it is sometimes prescribed that householders should worship particular demigods or forefathers. How then can such householders be considered unalloyed devotees of the Supreme Lord? The answer is that those who cannot come to the standard of pure devotional service should at least meditate upon the personality of Godhead as being situated within the demigods and all other living entities, understanding that all religious processes are ultimately meant for the pleasure of the Lord. While engaged in performing one's Varnashrama duties, one should see the Lord as the basis of everything. A devotee should concentrate on pleasing the Supreme Lord by all of his activities, because this alone will enable him to be elevated to the stage of life called love of God, and thus bring him to the point of actual liberation. On the other hand, those who simply execute their duties within the Varnashram system without trying to see everything in relation to Krishna will be unable to attain the platform of devotional service to the Lord. To see how every living entity is engaged in the service of the Lord is the vision of the topmost Vaishnava. So no matter what we are doing, we got to always remember God. That's what the bottom line is. So let's stop reading over here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyate Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.